Calaroga Shark Media. Hello and welcome to Ghost, Scary Stories. This episode is titled The Pumpkin Patch Haunting Part 1, The Cursed Harvest.
Emily Thornwood's boots squelched in the mud as she made her way through the darkening pumpkin patch. The October air bit at her cheeks, carrying the scent of decaying leaves and something else, something earthier and more unsettling. She pulled her flannel jacket tighter around her body and glanced at her watch. 9:47 p.m. Just a few more pumpkins to check before calling it a night. "You're being ridiculous," she muttered to herself, trying to shake off the eerie feeling that had been dogging her all evening. City girl scared of a little dark? But it wasn't just the dark. Ever since she'd bought Thornwood Pumpkin Patch, no relation, just a stroke of nominal luck, strange things had been happening. Tools misplaced, cold spots in the field on warm days, and sometimes, just at the edge of her hearing, whispers that didn't belong to any of her workers. As she knelt to examine a particularly promising pumpkin, a gust of wind swept through the patch. The corn maze to her left rustled ominously, and she could have sworn she heard her name carried on the breeze. Emily. She shot to her feet, heart pounding. "Who's there?" Her voice sounded thin and reedy in the vast openness of the field. No answer came, save for another whisper of wind. Emily shook her head, chuckling nervously. "Get it together, Thornwood. There's nobody." A flash of movement caught her eye. About 20 yards away, a pumpkin rolled lazily across her path, as if nudged by an invisible hand. Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat. That was impossible. The ground was flat. There was no slope for it to roll down. As she watched, another pumpkin a few feet away began to rock back and forth. "Okay, that's it," she said, backing away slowly. "I'm done for the night." She turned to hurry back to the barn and nearly screamed. There, not 10 feet in front of her, stood a figure. It was a man, or what had once been a man. He wore a tattered suit that might have been fashionable a century ago, now mouldering and hanging loosely on his gaunt frame. But it was his face that made Emily's blood run cold. Where eyes should have been, there were only dark, empty sockets, and his mouth was twisted into a rictus grin that glowed with an orange light, as if a candle flickered behind his teeth. Emily stumbled backward. A scream lodged in her throat. The figure raised a spectral hand, pointing directly at her. "Leave," it rasped, its voice like dry leaves scraping across granite. "Leave, or suffer my fate." Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the figure vanished, leaving Emily alone in the darkness, her ragged breathing the only sound in the still night air. "And you're sure you weren't drinking, Miss Thornwood?" Emily glared at Sheriff Mark Hawkins across her kitchen table. "For the last time, no. I don't drink, especially not when I'm working." The sheriff sighed, rubbing his temple. He was a solid man in his early 40s, with the weathered look of someone who'd seen it all, or thought he had, until now. "Look, I'm just trying to cover all the bases here. People see all sorts of things in the dark, especially this time of year. Halloween brings out the crazies." "I know what I saw," Emily insisted. "And it's not the first weird thing that's happened since I bought this place. Didn't the previous owners tell you anything?" Hawkins shifted uncomfortably. "The Johnsons, they weren't big talkers, sold the place in a hurry and moved out west." Emily leaned forward. "Don't you think that's strange? This patch is a gold mine during Halloween season. Why would anyone sell it and leave town so quickly unless something was wrong?" "Miss Thornwood." "Emily, please." "Emily," Hawkins corrected himself. "I've lived in this town my whole life. Thornwood Pumpkin Patch has been here for generations. If it was haunted, don't you think we'd know about it?" Emily stood up and walked to a small desk in the corner of the kitchen. She returned with a stack of yellowed papers. "I've been doing some research. Did you know the original owner of this patch died here? On Halloween night, 1923. Hawkins raised an eyebrow. Jack-o'-lantern? Everyone knows that story. It's part of the town's Halloween lore. Jack-o'-lantern? Emily's eyes widened. You're kidding. Afraid not. His real name was John Landon, but he loved Halloween so much the nickname stuck. Found dead in the patch on November 1st, 1923, officially ruled a heart attack. Emily spread the papers on the table. These are copies of old town records and newspaper clippings. The official story doesn't add up. There were rumors of foul play, but the investigation was closed suspiciously quickly. And get this, every owner since has either sold the patch within a year or suffered some kind of accident or misfortune. Hawkins frowned, looking over the documents. Where did you get these? Town Hall archives. I've been trying to research the patch's history for marketing purposes. But now, she trailed off, a shiver running through her. The sheriff was quiet for a long moment, his eyes scanning the papers. Finally, he looked up at Emily. All right, I'll tell you what. I'll increase patrols around the patch for the next few weeks. If anyone's trying to scare you off your property, we'll catch them. Emily nodded, grateful but unsatisfied. She knew what she'd seen wasn't some prankster in a costume. After Hawkins left, Emily found herself unable to sleep. The face of the apparition, Jack-o'-lantern, she now realized, kept flashing in her mind. On a whim, she decided to go back out to the patch. She needed to prove to herself that she wasn't going crazy. The full moon cast an eerie glow over the pumpkins as Emily made her way through the field. The air was unnaturally still, not even a breeze disturbing the leaves. She swept her flashlight back and forth, jumping at every shadow. As she neared the spot where she'd seen the ghost, her flashlight began to flicker. Emily smacked it against her palm, but the light only grew weaker. In the distance, a soft orange glow caught her eye. Heart pounding, she moved closer. There, rising from the ground as if it had sprouted like one of her pumpkins, was the ghostly figure of Jack-o'-lantern. This time, Emily stood her ground. "What do you want?" she called out, her voice stronger than she felt. The ghost's mouth opened, that terrible orange light spilling out. "You're in danger, Emily Thornwood," it said, its voice like wind through a graveyard. "The patch holds secrets darker than you can imagine. Leave now or you'll share my curse." "I'm not leaving," Emily said, surprised by her own defiance. "This is my home now. Whatever happened to you, I'm sorry, but—" She never finished her sentence. At that moment, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble. All around her, pumpkins started to glow with the same unearthly light as Jack's eyes and mouth. They rose into the air, spinning slowly. Jack's form began to waver, as if blown by an unfelt wind. "You've made your choice," he said, his voice fading. "Beware All Hallows Eve, Emily Thornwood. Beware the stroke of midnight." With a sound like 1,000 screams, the pumpkins shot towards Emily. She dropped to the ground, covering her head as the gourds whizzed past her, missing by inches. When she looked up, both Jack and the pumpkins were gone. Emily lay there in the mud, her heart threatening to burst from her chest. In the distance, the town clock began to toll. She counted the chimes with growing dread. 1, 2, 3. It was October 30th. She had exactly 24 hours until Halloween night, until the stroke of midnight.
Ghost is a Calaroga Shark media production, written and hosted by Alexander Ian McIntyre, produced by Mark Francis, executive producers Mark Francis and John McDermott. Portions of this podcast may have been created with the assistance of AI.
This show, along with hundreds of others from Calaroga Shark Media, is available commercial-free on any player, hassle-free. Just look for the link in the episode or show notes. Ghost now has merch. Find shirts, mugs, and more with the Ghost logo for sale at our merch store. There's free shipping and 10% off now with the coupon NEWMERCH10. Did we say there's free shipping? Check out all the goods at calaroga.com, that's CALOROGA.com, or just look for the link in the show notes. Thanks for supporting the show, we really appreciate it.
Calaroga Shark Media.